the 31st of January 1968, 0245 hours ICT. Tan Son Nhut Air Base perimeter, a figure in ARVN fatigues approaches the wire. The sentry calls out, "How y'all doin'?" and waits exactly 3 seconds. The pause stretches into eternity before the wrong answer seals both their fates. In those 10 seconds, American slang determines survival more reliably than any password. Military doctrine insists that uniforms, identification cards, and proper countersigns guarantee friend from foe. Army trains soldiers to check documents, verify unit patches, and memorize daily passwords. But in Saigon's chaos during Tet, these official markers become the perfect disguise. MPs across the Saigon sector discover that hometown knowledge beats military protocol entirely. The Viet Cong Infiltration Plan exploits American faith in visual authentication. Systematically, sappers acquire ARVN uniforms from deserters, tailors, and battlefield dead across Thua Tien province. Forgers in Cu Chi produce identification cards matching MACV templates exactly. Intelligence cells study American radio protocols and daily authentication codes through intercepted transmissions. Captured documents emphasize ranks, procedures, and military English training, but no curriculum teaches the casual rhythms of American regional slang. MPs in Saigon discover this gap accidentally in late January. A patrol stops 3 ARVN rangers carrying perfect papers near Cholon's western edge. Something feels wrong despite flawless credentials and pressed uniforms. The sergeant asks about the Super Bowl instead of checking passwords. The blank stares reveal what documents never could these men RVC. Military police across Saigon adopt cultural verification within hours. Each checkpoint develops unique Americana tests: sports teams, car engines, rock bands. The questions change frequently to prevent rehearsed responses. Standard operating procedure transforms overnight from checking papers to checking souls. Field. Reports note hundreds caught through slang versus dozens through documents by mid-February. The cultural gap no training bridges becomes Saigon's unexpected shield. Composite accounts based on MP after-action reports and oral histories. The standard authentication system collapses under Tet's sensory assault. Smoke from burning buildings obscures uniform details. Radio frequencies jam with overlapping emergency calls, making voice recognition impossible. Forged documents pass inspection in flickering flashlight beams. MPs describe checking papers while mortars fall, reading identification cards smeared with mud and blood. The visual markers that anchor military security blur into meaninglessness, but the cadence of hometown speech cuts through chaos like a clear frequency. When everything official can be faked or obscured, the rhythm of casual American conversation becomes the only reliable anchor. Field reports repeatedly note, infiltrators master the words but never the music. A squad leader, composite, commands a checkpoint on Highway 1 outside Saigon pre-dawn, January 31. His 10-man squad processes refugees fleeing the initial attacks. Standard procedure demands checking identification against unit rosters regularly. He abandons the manual after spotting multiple infiltrators within hours. Papers mean nothing when the enemy wears captured uniforms, he tells his men. His new system relies on rapid-fire American culture tests. Where's Mickey Mantle play ball? What's a Chevy small block displacement? Who sings Satisfaction? The questions rotate to prevent memorization. 3 seconds pass. The wire hums in the darkness. The drawl lands wrong. Legitimate ARVN interpreters struggle but show genuine confusion. VC infiltrators freeze or offer memorized military phrases instead. The distinction appears subtle but proves decisive. His checkpoint detains dozens of suspects between midnight and dawn. Brigade interrogation confirms most as enemy combatants. His cultural tripwires are associated with catching more infiltrators than document checks. The method spreads through Saigon's defensive perimeter within a day. Positions from Tan Son Nhut to the embassy adopt variations independently. Boston guards ask about Fenway Park. Texans demand rodeo knowledge. Californians test Beach Boys lyrics. By dawn, MPs credit cultural authentication with the difference between overrun checkpoints and held positions. The Viet Cong's perfect uniforms and forged papers cannot overcome the barrier of shared American experience. Not official procedure, but survival instinct drives the change. The three-question cadence becomes ritual under fire. First question hits fast, "What's Willie Mays's number?" requiring instant recall. Second comes slower, conversational, "You catch Carson last night?" testing the rhythm of response. Third drops casual Ford or Chevy, watching for the natural shrug that accompanies preference. Composite accounts describe the pattern. Rehearsed answers arrive too quickly, too perfectly spaced. Real Americans stumble, pause to think, interrupt themselves. One MP, composite, recalls the tell. Charlie answered everything in the same beat, like a metronome. Americans sound messy, you know. We talk over ourselves, trail off, jump back. The distinction proves more reliable than accents. Infiltrators nail pronunciation, but miss the music always one beat off. An ARVN liaison officer, composite, serves between Ranger units and MACV advisors in Cholon throughout early February. Born in Hue, educated at University of Saigon, fluent in 3 languages, perfect credentials mean nothing at American checkpoints. MPs stop him repeatedly crossing between command posts. Each position invents different authentication tests beyond standard passwords. One sergeant demands he name NFL teams. Another checkpoint requires singing any Elvis song's first line. A third wants him to identify a Zippo lighter's manufacturing state. He knows ARVN radio codes perfectly, but cannot name American breakfast cereals, according to composite MP recollections. Allied officers develop their own cultural shorthand for survival. American advisors coach ARVN counterparts through breakfast conversations, Wheaties, Cheerios, cornflakes, turning mess hall meals into authentication prep. Vietnamese officers practice casual American phrases between operations, memorizing not just words but shoulder shrugs, head tilts, the lazy wave that says, "No big deal." The culture checks cut both ways. ARVN units begin testing Americans on Vietnamese phrases. Buddha's birthday, the taste difference between northern and southern fur. Mutual authentication becomes partnership. Composite accounts describe evening sessions where allies trade cultural passwords. You teach me baseball, I teach you Tet traditions. The shared vulnerability builds trust that formal liaison meetings never achieved. He memorizes baseball teams and bourbon brands to survive Allied checkpoints. American advisors create cultural cheat sheets, essential Americana that separates friendlies from infiltrators. Ford versus Chevy, Coke versus Pepsi, Yankees versus Red Sox. The lists circulate among ARVN officers as survival equipment. Military Academy graduates study American slang with combat tactics intensity. The cultural divide that frustrates joint operations suddenly saves lives. "How y'all doin'?" becomes the phrase every ARVN officer practices. The drawl must sound natural. The pause must feel right. The response determines whether American fingers squeeze triggers. Knowing the Star-Spangled Banner matters less than recognizing Johnny Cash. Military protocols prove worthless when popular culture becomes the authentication key. Officers survive Tet because they master American trivia, not just tactics. While VC perfect military protocols, field reports note they cannot fake hometown knowledge. A security police specialist, composite, runs perimeter security at Biên Hòa Air Base in early February. His sector covers hundreds of meters of wire with multiple M60 positions. The official countersign changes every shift, thunder answered with lightning this rotation. He observes VC prisoners demonstrate perfect countersign pronunciation during interrogations. Captured documents show the enemy studies, code books, and monitors radio frequencies. By nightfall, infiltrators often know passwords before many defenders. He develops his Chicago neighborhood test for unknown approaches. Name L stations. Describe Navy Pier. Explain what makes Vienna beef special. Ask about deep dish pizza. The enemy thinks all American pizza is the same, according to composite accounts. His system exposes numerous infiltrators in ARVN uniforms over several nights. Each carries valid identification and knows current authentication codes. None can explain why Chicagoans put sport peppers on hot dogs. Airbase security units adopt hometown trivia across checkpoints within days. Regional expertise becomes more reliable than centralized security measures. Southern boys ask about NASCAR drivers. New Yorkers demand subway directions. Texans test barbecue knowledge. Military intelligence cannot replicate the lifetime accumulation of local culture. Interrogations reveal VC train for months to perfect accents and memorize procedures. They cannot absorb decades of American childhood in any training camp. MPs credit cultural barriers withholding when traditional defenses fail. Bienhua repels multiple sapper attacks with slang as the first detection method. Not classified information but common knowledge is associated with defeating sophisticated infiltration. The airbase develops its own authentication atmosphere. Runway lights throw shadows that Americans read instinctively, which planes park where, how crew chiefs walk, the particular slouch of overnight maintenance shifts. Guards test approaches with aviation slang specific to Bien Hoa. How's the coffee at the Mars station? Real airmen know it tastes like motor oil. What's the penalty for walking on the red line? Everyone knows the sergeant makes you do push-ups. These microcultures within bases create authentication layers. Composite accounts describe the accumulation. Accent, stance, complaint patterns about the heat, the specific way Americans curse when F4 seconds take off at dawn. Paper can pass inspection. Pattern recognition proves harder. The language of belonging echoes in 100 tiny calibrations that no infiltrator manual captures. A CID agent, composite, investigates black market activity in Da Nang in late January. His informant network spans bar girls, cyclo drivers, and ARVN quartermasters. Days before Tet, sources report strangers asking unusual questions about MP routines. Street fragments suggest rehearsal patterns. Bar girls mention customers practicing American phrases in back rooms. Cyclo drivers report fares testing different accents between stops. Tailors describe orders for uniform alterations with unusual attention to MP insignia placement. The investigator assembles these fragments into infiltration indicators. He briefs sector commanders on linguistic preparation signs. Groups drilling English in safe houses, sudden interest in American sports scores, strangers testing colloquialisms on merchants. The pattern intelligence arrives without hard proof, built from conversational debris. Field units adjust authentication protocols based on these street-level observations, rotating their cultural tests faster than infiltrators can adapt their rehearsals. He realizes these aren't criminals but intelligence collectors mapping defenses. He alerts military police units immediately. Brigade elements implement street verification systems within hours. Patrols carry slang phrases only Americans recognize naturally. Cool your jets. Right on. Catch you on the flip side. Charlie can fake Southern Vietnamese perfectly but not. Southern California, composite sources recall. Patrols test suspicious individuals with casual expressions requiring contextual responses. Real GIs answer slang with equal slang naturally. Infiltrators respond with textbook English or memorized military phrases. The distinction appears subtle but proves decisive under pressure. CID networks identify numerous VC reconnaissance teams before the offensive begins. Da Nang's defenses hold partly because infiltrators lose their intelligence advantage. The city suffers notably fewer casualties than Saigon. The pattern repeats across I Corps throughout February. Marines at Hue Citadel use Boston slang to verify replacements. Army units along Route 1 test Southern expressions. American positions develop unique cultural authentication independently. Field reports note detection rates using culture exceed credentials several-fold. These observations influence command guidance within days. Commanders link Da Nang's successful defense partly to slang-beating disguises. Across South Vietnam in February 1968, similar patterns emerge at urban checkpoints. MPs credit culture checks at contact points with improving security beyond official protocols. Field innovations spread through the Saigon sector and other commands within days. Between the attack waves, checkpoints practice their casual American. MPs rehearse the natural reply, the easy laugh, the offhand reference that can't be taught. Composite accounts describe these intervals. Guards trading hometown stories, perfecting their challenge phrases, debating which questions work best. The lost second that pause between challenge and response where culture shows itself becomes the focus of intense study. Veterans later recall this moment as physical sensation. Breath held, finger on trigger, waiting for the rhythm to land right or wrong. No official report captures these practice sessions, these quiet preparations between crises. But every checkpoint develops its own authentication dance, refined under pressure, proven in blood. The cultural test becomes muscle memory, as automatic as chambering a round. Senior commanders tour Saigon checkpoints within days of Tet's initial attacks. Military police escort them through numerous positions across the city. Each checkpoint employs different authentication beyond standard procedures. Some demand sports trivia, others test music knowledge. Automotive questions filter approaches at motor pools. Commanders initially question these unauthorized modifications. Provost Marshal briefings present casualty analysis from early February. Checkpoints using only official passwords show substantially higher infiltration rates. Positions employing cultural authentication are associated with detecting enemy agents at rates several times higher. MP Battalion reports document hundreds of infiltrators caught through slang tests. Standard document checks identify dozens during the same period. The contrast influences command thinking immediately. "We're not checking identity anymore, we're checking souls," one briefer reportedly observes. Theater guidance soon acknowledges these irregular authentication protocols. Unit standard operating procedures begin formalizing cultural verification methods. Military intelligence acknowledges it cannot replicate what Americans absorb through childhood. NCOs translate field innovations into teachable doctrine. Shift briefings include cultural authentication blocks, rotate prompts every 2 hours, never use the same question twice per shift, pair slang with standard checks, but weight the cultural response. Training emphasizes the distinction between cue and verdict. Wrong answers flag scrutiny, not automatic detention. Composite accounts describe the evolution. Squad leaders drilling new arrivals on regional variations, creating authentication cards sorted by American geography, developing hand signals that indicate culture check in progress. The improvisation hardens into procedure without losing its essential flexibility. MPs learn to read hesitation, to spot the over-rehearsed reply, to trust the instinct that says something's off, even when papers check out. Brigade trainers acknowledge authentication becomes art more than science, but art with reproducible techniques. "How y'all doin'?" spoken with genuine regional drawl demands equally natural response. The pause before answering reveals more than accent or vocabulary. That hesitation marks the cultural gap no training bridges. Military police units distribute authentication crib sheets within weeks. Each contains dozens of American touchstone questions. Baseball teams, breakfast cereals, car models, TV shows, regional foods. ARVN liaison officers receive Americana briefings at various headquarters. Combined action platoons develop regional variations. Boston units ask about the Green Monster. Georgia troops test Coca-Cola loyalty. California positions demand surfing knowledge. The system helps Vietnamese allies who learn American culture for survival. Officers carry authentication notes beside their weapons. Knowing hometown trivia becomes essential equipment. By March, many checkpoints run dual authentication, military and cultural. The Viet Cong reportedly adapt by avoiding checkpoints entirely. Field reports associate cultural verification with reduced infiltration attacks. The metric isn't enemy killed, but friendly lives preserved. America's throwaway culture becomes South Vietnam's defensive tool. Pop songs matter alongside passwords. Sports trivia supplements military procedure. In 10 seconds of slang, survival hangs in the balance. The checkpoint innovations influence security practices beyond Vietnam. Military police units elsewhere adopt cultural tests by spring. Marine guards at various locations implement variations. The lesson transcends Southeast Asia. The Army War College analyzes Tet's lessons for urban warfare throughout 1968. Emphasize firepower, mobility, and communication improvements. The cultural authentication phenomenon receives limited coverage in extensive analysis. Military institutions resist acknowledging that hometown knowledge supplemented professional training. MP field innovations challenge traditional security doctrine. Veterans know differently. Tet survivors remember their checkpoint phrases precisely. "How y'all doin'?" is credited by many with survival advantages over standard procedures. The quick drawl test, the calculated pause, the life-saving reply, these moments define survival when uniforms lie. Similar methods appear in Iraq and Afghanistan decades later. Each generation rediscovers culture runs deeper than documentation. Taliban infiltrators fail Beatles tests. Iraqi insurgents can't name American cars. The pattern repeats at American checkpoints worldwide. The principle adapts but endures across conflicts. Iraq veterans develop gesture tests, how Americans point, wave, smoke cigarettes. Afghanistan checkpoints use humor, cadence, the timing of a laugh that reveals cultural origin. Each war produces its authentication innovation, but all trace back to Tet's discovery. Shared experience leaves signatures that training cannot replicate. Veterans compile informal lists passed between deployments, moments when paper said yes but pattern said no. The Beatles test in Kandahar, the football quiz in Fallujah, the breakfast cereal challenge in Baghdad. Different wars, same revelation. Culture authenticates when credentials lie. Saigon's MPs discovered what every generation relearns under fire, that 20 years of Saturday cartoons creates recognition no enemy can fake. That hometown knowledge runs deeper than any cover story, that in the space between challenge and response, culture tells the truth. In 10 seconds of slang, Americans recognize Americans across disguises. No enemy replicates decades of Saturday morning cartoons. No training camp teaches the cultural difference between Coke and Pepsi. The Saigon MP's discovery endures because it acknowledges fundamental truth. Shared culture creates bonds beyond military protocol. When seconds decide survival, hometown knowledge proves invaluable. When seconds decide survival in Saigon's chaos, shared culture supplements official credentials powerfully. The Viet Cong perfect uniforms and passwords, but cannot fake a lifetime of American experience. Slang beat disguises when seconds chose life or death.